going to be talking to Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. But first, we're going to light this candle. And if you like, you can take some deep breaths. You can even imagine that you are blowing out the flame. And as you blow out that flame, you can imagine that you are releasing any tension, anxiety, or bad vibes that have been plaguing you that you want to let go of. I think I got a little too much sun earlier. I look very pink. I don't think I'm sunburned though. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Great job so far, you guys. So we're going to start with the sign of Aries. These are the cards that I'll be using this week. It is the Cosmic Tarot by Norbert Loesch. I really love the symbolism on these cards. And I'm going to be doing the Celtic Cross, but I'm going to be talking a lot about the different cards and the way that they interact with each other. So Aries, if you would, just kind of gently relax and allow your intention and anything you'd like to address in the reading to rise up to the forefront of your thoughts and just kind of gently wait there. We will address these things over the course of the reading. Now, got a jumper. Aries, if these things are stressful for you, just kind of breathe gently through that tension. As you inhale, draw in the divine white light of Source. And then as you exhale, I want you to just release all of that tension right back to Source, and it will be transmuted for you. Okay, so I did have a jumper, but I'm going to put it back in the deck, and I'll make a note of the timestamp. So we have the Tower card coming out in the reverse for you, Aries. You could have experienced a close call. It could be near disaster, narrowly averted. See if the Tower card comes out again. And I will remember the timestamp for that and write it down in just a moment. Okay. Lots of major arcana so far. Lots of cups. Lots of court cards. Move my candle. Sorry about that. Okay, so the Tower card did not come back out for you, Aries. And we can get started here in the past. What we have is the Lover's card. It's coming out in the reverse. So this could have been a time in the past. It could have been a union between you and another person. That's possible. But the Lover's card can also represent a choice being made. It can represent balancing things. It is associated with the sign of Gemini in the major arcana. So we have these two almost identical birds here. Can represent two different paths that can be taken. So in that way, it's very similar to the Two of Swords. And because this card is showing up in the reverse, either that choice has been made, it's possible that relationship ended. This would be something that was resolved in the past. It can also be that the relationship started in the past and is still continuing. The Lover's card can be about other kinds of partnerships too. So not just romantic relationships, but could also be a business partnership. Could be about a roommate if you are especially close. And they were roommates. Oh my God, they were roommates. So let's move on to the current situation, Gemini. And we have there the Prince of Cups coming out as the significator. So we can see down here, this might be scorpionic energies. That Tower card is associated with the planet of Mars. And so can also be associated with scorpionic energies, as well as your sign, Aries. So perhaps you know somebody who is a water sign. Maybe they're a Scorpio. The Prince of Cups is somebody who is very guided by their emotional states. So someone who maybe trusts their heart and their gut more than their brain, but can also be somebody who is overly guided by their emotions to the extent that if something doesn't feel right, they won't do it, even if their intuition is a little bit off. And this is crossed by the World card. So the World card is about endings. Now, when this card comes out in the place of the significator, usually that indicates that it is the querent. It doesn't necessarily have to be the case, and especially for those of you who have a habit of cross-watching, this could be the other person in a scenario. I neither condone nor discourage cross-watching. That's between you and the other person. So the World card, we have here the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. We have Leo, we have Taurus, we have Scorpio again, showing up as an eagle this time. And we have Aquarius. And we have this common theme throughout this deck of light being shined or light shining out of the eye holes. And it can represent in this deck powers of manifestation, that you're using the divine light of source, you're channeling it through the self and projecting it outward as a power of manifestation. And this dancer turning the actions of the world itself with their movement. Sometimes it is thought that the person on the world card is non-binary, or possibly possessing of multiple genders. I'll leave that up to your interpretation, whatever you prefer. We have these roses all over the world card. That could represent fertility. The roses could also represent beauty. The rose with its thorns is often used as a symbol of both pain and beauty in the world. Both exist. The world is a Saturnian card, elemental earth, and has to do with endings and closure. So because it is associated with the planet of Saturn, it is also associated with the signs of Capricorn and Aquarius. So we've got some scorpionic energies. You could be trusting your gut at this time to guide you through a particular ending. And it could have to do with a choice that was made in the past, that you might have chosen one path or a different path to go down. It could have been a choice in a relationship also, but that's not necessarily the case. I like to leave it a little open-ended. There are plenty of love readings here on YouTube, and I invite you to find somebody who specializes in that if that's what you're looking for. I will only tell you about that if it specifically comes up. Here in the Imam Silai, so that's going to be directly beneath the place of the significator, and we're going to be looking at the origins and foundations upon which your goal or destiny will be built. We'll be looking at that up at the top, on top of the significator. The card that we have in that position is the Six of Cups, and this can be about things returning from the past. And of course, we have two amorous couples here. The one couple here, we've got another couple, again on this card. Six of Cups could be about first love. It can be things returning from your childhood, feelings of nostalgia, things returning from the past in general. We have this little white bird up here in the corner, and that can represent purity in the tarot. So here we've got some red flowers, the love. We've got a white lily, that can be purity also. These birds are mostly white, but their wings are black, showing that there's that balance there. I think these birds have this coloration to align them with that balance of the yin-yang up here at the top, more so than to depict purity like we see with the bird on this card. So currently something could be returning to you. If it hasn't yet, look for it. Here, from your perspective, we're going to look at your perspective on the situation. We're going to look at an outsider's perspective on your situation as well. And it's interesting because in the place of your perspective, we have the Prince of Wands, that perhaps this is how you are coming through in a situation. Prince of Wands is fire of fire energy. So that's going to be almost elemental fire energy itself, burning very hot, just like the sun. So on this card, it is more aligned with the sign of Leo. But think of this Prince of Wands energy as somebody burning the candle at both ends. Uh, this is not a very sustainable level of energy to be carrying through. We do have the two fixed signs represented by this fire energy. It's an active energy. Uh, we have the Prince of Cups is Scorpio and the Prince of Wands being Leo. So a lot of fixed sign energy coming out here for you, Aries. And Aries, of course, is a cardinal sign. Because remember, the World card has a lot of fixed energy too and is associated with the sign of Saturn. So you might also have a feeling at this time that things are moving a little bit slowly for your taste. And especially coming to the end of Aries season, moving into Taurus season. I think as I do this video, we're already going to be into Taurus season just a little bit. But this Prince of Wands, you could be putting a lot of energy into a particular thing at this time. And especially if you're trying to move it forward, if you're trying to create forward momentum of some kind. But remember, too, that this is balanced out by this Six of Cups energy. We've got something returning from the past, and it is from an opposing energy, which is that passive water energy. Of course, fire and water being opposites, elementally speaking. So, from an outsider's perspective, we have the Princess of Wands. She is showing up in the reverse. This is Earth of fire energy. Now, one thing to bear in mind with the princesses of the deck, these are basically like the pages. It's a very young energy, can be perceived as being a little immature. So where we have the Princess of Wands in the reverse like this, it could be somebody who comes across as very enthusiastic about a situation, but not terribly serious about a situation. So very enthusiastic, very eager to please, perhaps. But somebody who just isn't going to have the wherewithal to be depended upon. That might be how people see you at this time. So while you do want to push through and push past this kind of Saturnian or fixed energy that you're experiencing at this time, if you push too hard, you might be perceived as not having the staying power that's required to get through the whole situation. And again, you've got things returning from the past. It might be related to a choice that you made, but it might be related to a relationship from the past as well. It doesn't have to be a love relationship. It can be a business partnership. It could be another situation where two people were working closely on a project. So now we're going to look into the future, the future, the future, the future. And in the future, we do have a card in the reverse. It is the King of Swords. And this, similarly to how the Prince of Wands is elemental fire, the King of Swords is air of air energy, Aries. So maybe some of you have air energy in your chart. This would be associated with the sign of Libra. We have a falcon here. So a lot of this bird of prey imagery, in this case, we're bringing in Scorpio energy with that bird of prey. Here, we're looking at another bird of prey. So there might be a situation here in the current, or actually probably closer to in the future, a future forward-looking techniques, or what you might want to be kind of aware of moving forward, Aries, is being able to take a high vantage point such that you will be able to survey the land below, much like would be done by a bird of prey looking for motion, perhaps looking to snatch little rodents or rabbits off of the desert plain. The King of Swords is about discernment, and not binary discernment, but very logically driven, fine-tuned, gray discernment. So able to navigate these morally ambiguous areas. And this card is showing up in the reverse, like probably you're not quite there yet. Because remember, we had the Prince of Cups showing up as the significator for you, such that this Prince of Cups, of course, is going to be somebody who is thinking more with their heart and their gut than their mind. So if that is what you have been doing up until this point, Aries, moving forward, it might be time to change your technique. And that would be why this card is showing up in the reverse in the future rather than in the upright, because it would show that you haven't yet started honing that really fine-tuned and purely logical discernment and utilizing it that way. So here in your hopes and fears, we have Virgo's card. We have the Hermit. And the Hermit, someone who has removed themselves far away from the general public in order to commune with the higher power and bring that enlightenment down here to the material plane, coming up with these higher concepts. So we do have the moon over here, but our luminary in this scene is this star, and we see it coming down to earth and being contained within this lamp that the hermit is then using, whether it's through books or a YouTube channel or other forms of communication that are not directly between oneself and public group, but that the person is able to remain somewhat pure by keeping themselves remote from the general public, keeping their ideology pure, keeping that connection to source pure. I'm having a few little focus problems, so I'm going to gently and as quietly as possible move my microphone down just a hair. I move my camera to change the battery, so I think every time I do that, sometimes the angle changes just a little bit. So thank you for bearing with me. We have a lot of Prince energy in your reading today, Aries. And that would be appropriate for your sign. Aries is a cardinal sign. It is the first sign. It's considered the first sign in the wheel of the zodiac and is the ruler of the first house of self and of beginnings. So there can be a tendency toward focus on the self and a tendency toward things having to do with being younger. But of course, you're not the totality of your sun, moon, or rising sign. That's only one factor in your entire chart. So here in the midheaven, this is going to be the goal or destiny. And we are looking at that Prince of Pentacles. I do think this is associated with Capricorn energy. We kind of see this goat off to the side over his shoulder. So looking at the Six of Cups in the upright, something returning from the past is going to set up for this Prince of Pentacles to come in. This is, rather than Earth of Fire energy, now we have Fire of Earth energy. And I think that the outcome of whatever this is returning for you from the past is going to be that you are bringing in money, that money is coming towards you. But because this card is reversed, I think it's still dependent on some of your actions that have yet to be solidified. So, of course, shifting your discernment from a more emotional kind of discernment, trusting your gut, trusting your heart. You need to be able to trust what you know about situations with that King of Swords. And when you're able to focus more on that, then this money will come rushing in for you. And it's going to have to do with this thing returning from the past. So it's very easy, of course, to see that Six of Cups through the lens of the Prince of Cups. Nostalgia is definitely one of the heavy traits of that Six of Cups, that we remember perhaps some of the good, perhaps some of the bad. Perhaps we have a really idealized notion of what has come before. Hi, Maria. Thank you for coming. It's really good to see you. And the final outcome of your reading this week, Aries. We have an air sign card here for you. This is actually Mercury planetary energy. So would be associated with the signs of Gemini and with the sign of Virgo. So again, we have this motif like what we saw on the World card with the sign of Aquarius over here, that the sign of Aquarius has this light streaming out of their eyes. We see that again on this card, that the divine light of Source is perhaps coming through the third eye, being reflected outward into the world as the manifestations of the magician. We have the infinity symbol, that the power the magician holds is infinite. We have the four tools, the four magical tools of the minor arcana of the tarot. And we also have down here in the corners the white flowers and the red flowers. So Albus and Rubeus being kind of the opposing the purity and then the profane. So you can get power from either one. Oh, hi, Andy. Thank you for coming. It's really good to see you. But a good magician is going to be able to balance and reconcile these two opposing forces. So, Aries, what I see for you is that overall, you're going to be able to manifest the outcome that you desire. And the only advice that I do have for you moving forward is just to make sure that you are honing that discernment to your benefit and using your brain for the discernment rather than your heart, as tempting as it might be. So that is going to conclude the Aries reading for this week. And now I'm going to move on to the sign of Leo. And after these readings have concluded, I'm going to go over to the members side of the channel and do some crystal scrying with this beautiful chunk of turquoise. If that interests you, you are cordially invited. But your presence here on the channel is greatly appreciated in whatever form it takes. So, Leo, if you would like to just go ahead and relax and allow yourself to set an intention for the reading and allow any concerns and thoughts that you have that you would like to settle in the reading, allow those things to rise up to the front of your thoughts. Now, if you find these things stressful, I invite you to take some deep and cleansing breaths. As you breathe in, draw into your body the divine white light of Source from the crown of your head down through the soles of your feet. And then as you exhale, just release any of that tension or stress or anxiety that you may be holding on to. It will return to Source and it will be transmuted. Okay. And let me just write down your timestamp. So, Leo, here in the past, we have the Nine of Pentacles. And this card is upright, so you're probably still occupying this space. We have a very successful person here. You don't have to be male, female, non-binary, doesn't matter, to embody this energy. We can see this is somebody who is able to eat and drink well. They have this abundance of wealth, shown as this arc of pentacles, kind of going from their midsection down to the floor. It's almost like they are drawing the energy down through themselves, and then it gets about here to that solar plexus chakra. And at that point, it is able to be manifested down into the physical plane as this material wealth. We have what I'm sure is a very nice car out there. This house is big enough that it wraps around. This is kind of like a mansion. We have this beautiful bird sitting on this branch, showing the freedom that money can buy. Money cannot necessarily buy happiness, but it absolutely can buy levels of freedom. So, Leo, you may or may not be feeling this Nine of Pentacles abundance right now, but probably surrounding you in your life in some capacity. You have freedom. Perhaps it was purchased with wealth, but perhaps the Nine of Pentacles in this case is representing also the possibility of manifesting that freedom here on the physical plane. And this would be, because that card is upright, continuing into the current situation. So let's see what we have there for you, Leo. In the place of the significator, we have the Star card in the reverse. So this is very interesting. You could be waiting on some hopes and dreams to be fulfilled. This card being in the reverse doesn't mean that these things aren't coming, but it might be that you're not seeing them yet. Look at how this person, the water bearer with the 2 cups in the hands, they're pouring that water out back into this larger body of water. They're not looking up at this star. They're looking down into the water, and perhaps they're able to see reflections of this light in the surface of the water. But there's going to be some distortion because you can see that they're touching the water with their foot, and therefore might be causing ripples and little waves that are going to affect their ability to see this star for what it really is. We see connection to the divine, not just here, but we see the connection of the light of this star to the light of the moon. We also see it connected to the horizon, and we see it echoed here on the diadem of this figure. And flamingos, it depends on what you think about flamingos. So one thing about flamingos is they're very much a basically like you are what you eat, right? Flamingos are pink because they eat shrimp all the time. All the time. So what are you eating all the time, Leo? Here on the Nine of Pentacles, we see that you probably have access to a lot of different kinds of food and drink. What are you putting into your body? If you are what you eat, how do you eat success? How do you eat your hopes and dreams in order to keep them alive during this time? You could be very close to this fulfillment, and I'll tell you why in just a little bit. This card is crossed by the Nine of Wands. And of course, this would be a card associated with the strength and protective properties of lion energy. We also have this serpent kind of coiled around this wand in a very protective way. And this Dolph Lundgren looking kind of guy who is more than happy to protect all of us behind these kind of fences or gates composed of the wands. So the Nine of Wands is kind of like protecting what you already have. It's having this, but it's also feeling like you need to protect that. And this is interesting because it is showing up here with the star card in the reverse. Now the star is Aquarius energy in the major arcana. And Aquarius is a sign associated with social groups. It's all these 11th house traits that we associate then with Aquarius. Social groups, this can be social media, it can be different groups that you're a part of, group dynamics in general. So if you are too guarded in your social groups, it is going to be difficult for you to fulfill hopes and dreams with the help of those groups of people. Not that you necessarily need that, but it is something to keep in mind. So down here in the Imam Selah, I saved one of the princes just for you, Leo. So the Prince of Swords is going to be fire of air energy. And we do have this bird of prey peeking over his shoulder. Perhaps he's a falconer in training. We have more Aquarius energy showing up. So this little tie tack here on his ascot, also associated with Aquarius. The Prince of Swords is kind of like binary discernment. So, what are we going to keep? What are we going to get rid of? Which way are we going to go? Are we going to go left or are we going to go right? It's a very binary sense of discernment, and that might be important for you to utilize at this time, especially if you're paring down possessions or if you are in these group situations looking at which of these people are really my friends, which of these people do I want to be around, what of these circumstances is appealing to me. Do I go to this place and do I always have a good time? Or do I sometimes go here and sometimes things are just a little bit neither here nor there? Am I afraid somebody's going to put something in my drink? Those are all considerations. Looking at your perspective on the situation. Leo, we have you showing up, or your energy showing up here as the Queen of Wands reversed. Now, the Queen of Wands in the reverse can be catty, can be gossipy, but this can also be an energy of not feeling like you are putting yourself out there in an appealing, confident kind of a way. That you feel like maybe not very confident. And of course, sometimes that's where gossip starts, is with a lack of confidence. Or that you feel like when you show up to a party, everybody else is like, oh, well, I guess that person showed up, time for us to all leave. Who wants to take this party somewhere else and leave Leo here by themselves? We'll leave like one at a time and we can take like one or two cars. I think you get what I'm saying, but do you hear how crazy that sounds? Do you hear how paranoid you seem when you think those things? And trust me, I'm a Leo sun. I'm saying this to you just as much as I'm saying it to myself. From an outsider's perspective, looking in, we have the King of Pentacles, and this card is showing up reversed. So we got a lot of reversed court cards here, some other kind of reversals. This King of Pentacles is somebody who is very successful, very good at managing their money. We do have another goat up here. But the King of Pentacles is often associated with the sign of Taurus. So a fellow fixed sign energy. Now, remember, you have this abundance around you. It kind of just magically follows you wherever you go, I think. But the King of Pentacles is somebody, when they're in the reverse like this, maybe you've got some ideas about money or about physical resources that are a little bit too fixed, that are a little too rigid to be productive and helpful for you in the current situation. And that would be another thing that it would be useful for you to cut out. So, looking at this Prince of Swords energy, one thing that it'll be useful to cut out is these not helpful opinions about money. And another thing it's going to be useful for you to cut out is these not helpful ideas about your sense of self-worth. And I can understand, I know some of us are looking for employment right now. I just got hired at a job, but I'm still in the onboarding process. So it's going to be a little while still before I really make any money there. But it's very easy when you're in kind of a backpedaling phase of your life to feel the restrictions as personal deficiency. But it's important to understand that everybody goes through these things, no matter how smart, no matter how talented. Everyone's going to have hardships in their life. And if it's not related to money, it's going to be related to something else. And that's not to take anything away from anyone else. That's just for everyone to realize everybody gets something, nobody gets everything. And you can try as hard as you want. You're never going to have everything. That's just how it goes. Otherwise, you wouldn't have bothered to come here. So let's look at the future. We have another one of your cards showing up. So I always considered the Queen of Wands to be a very Leo-associated card, but it could also be Sagittarius. The Sun is definitely a Leo card. And it's showing up here in the reverse. So the potential is there for success and great happiness. And I think that what might be going on at this time, Leo, is that you're not seeing these things manifesting. And I'm sure that's very frustrating. There might be some things that you need to shed. There might be some antiquated attitudes that you need to let go of. That might not even have anything to do with it. It might just be a matter of timing. But I do think that shedding some of these old ideas will help you to put yourself in the position that you need to be in order to really unlock these things in your life. There's also a lot here on the Sun card. We have this child in the foreground. And then if you look over here on the edge of the card, we've got two white birds. So there's a lot of purity associated with that. We also have down here in front of the child, we've got some white flowers, maybe with a little hint of yellow to them. So maybe your first realization immediately after the purity of being a very small child, you get that first realization of the self. And that is represented here by the hint of yellow on these flowers. See if you can get back in touch with yourself, who you feel yourself to be at your core, your ideals that you hold deep inside, and furthermore, what it is that you are eager to share of yourself with others. And that, sometimes for me, is the hardest part. And especially when you're coming from this Nine of Wands energy of a feeling like you have to be very guarded. So your hopes and fears. We have the passive energy of the Three of Cups. This can be about very close-knit relationships. So this is small, close-knit friend groups. It can also be spending time with close friends and associates. And you may be hoping that you'll be able to do this at this time, Leo. Now, of course, it's up to you. But if you're coming to this situation with this kind of antisocial, not confident energy of the Queen of Wands, you might not be putting yourself out there to hang out with your friends. I don't think this card is hoping that you will have close friendships, because of course you're a Leo. Why wouldn't you? But I do think there has been some different things either in the recent past or perhaps that have stacked up over time that have caused you to feel like there might be people out there who have it out for you, or who or that you need to be guarded around people because they mean you ill. So let's look up here in in the midheaven position. We have Aries card here, the Emperor, and he's got the holy hand grenade and the scepter on a platter in front of him. Fine dining experience indeed. I heard those things will blow you up. He looks very regal. He looks very poised. Behind him, you see the walls of his kingdom. He might be sitting on the inside of those walls on a throne. He could be sitting on the outside of those walls on a throne. Either way, you know that he is divinely protected and probably heavily guarded. But he doesn't have to guard himself. The emperor is able to delegate that task to others. The emperor is in charge of his own existence. He rules competently over his kingdom. So some of you might have Aries energy in your chart. The emperor would be a very active energy as opposed to passive energy. This is somebody who does, somebody who acts, someone who is potentially divinely guided, but definitely rules by divine right. There's a lot of control over one's life. That is going to develop out of this energy of the Prince of Swords with that binary discernment that I was talking about earlier. That there are going to be some things that just need to be checked off on a list. Did you do it or did you not do it? Is this useful to me or has its functionality in my life passed? Do I feel good when I go here or does it make me feel bad? So all of those things are considerations, and they are going to lead you to this state of control over your life, and possibly to this as well. Now, the final outcome card for you this week, Leo. We have the King of Cups. This would be associated with Cancer energy. The King of Cups is air of water, like a nice cool sea breeze, right? So Cancerians are very concerned with the reciprocity of emotions between themselves and others. And the King of Cups is a provider for others, actively providing for others, not just emotionally nurturing, but also might be putting a roof over your head, might be feeding or clothing or giving to charity, taking care of people in an active sense. And because this card is showing up in the reverse, this person could be a very actively nurturing person who has not yet come into your life, but will be in the near future. This person might also be, so another aspect of the King of Cups when it's showing up in the reverse, because this is the final outcome. So in some ways it might be a future position. So this might be somebody you haven't met yet. But the King of Cups can sometimes be overly sensitive in some ways, or potentially emotionally manipulative, or using that nurturing to manipulate. So that is a consideration as well. Of course, this is a general reading, so it's not going to be all of one or all of the other for everyone here. It's just going to be kind of a mixed bag. It could be a little from each. He does have this crown on his head, and the crowns in the tarot represent the sovereignty, right? So where the crown is upright, we see sovereignty maintained. Where we see the crown reversed or fallen, as it is on the Tower card, we see the potential for a slide into despotism or for things to end disastrously. I don't necessarily think anything is going to end disastrously for you, Leo, but it might be something to look out for. So that is going to conclude the Leo reading for this week. I am going to be going after the Sagittarius reading to the member side of the channel to do some crystal scrying with this beautiful chunk of turquoise. So if that interests you, you're cordially invited, but of course your presence here on the channel is greatly appreciated in whatever form it takes. So now we're going to move on to the sign of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius, if you would like to go ahead and set your intention for the reading, allow that. Oh, thank you, Andy. It's so good to see you. Andy does live streams over on Twitch. So if you enjoy experimental ambient modular electronics, interesting visuals, and cats, I recommend Andy's channel over on Twitch. It is at AWBoard. Yes, wonderful. And Sagittarius, if any of the issues that you've come here today to find out more about are stressful, I invite you to breathe through that energy. So as you inhale, draw in the divine white light of Source, and then as you exhale, just release that tension, that discomfort, right back to Source, and it will be transmuted. And I'm just going to, I think these are shuffled well enough. I'm going to deal them out. Some strong major arcana right off the top of the deck. Oh, we've got a lot going on for you, Sagittarius. Okay. And I will write down your timestamp. So Sagittarius, let's start here in the past. We have the Hierophant. And as you can see, the back of these cards, very beautiful. It's depicted here in the hand of the Hierophant. So he also is a diviner. You can tell that he has a direct connection to Source and that he is reflecting that Source out into the world through his eyes. And that can also represent the power of drawing down Source and manifesting into the physical plane different aspects of Source energy. So we see the Hierophant doing that here. Now, what separates the Hierophant from the High Priestess is that the Hierophant also connects with the people around him. So that separates him both from the High Priestess and also from the Hermit. So the Hermit and the Hierophant occasionally change places. Sometimes the Hermit will come down and rejoin society. Sometimes the Hierophant, in order to conserve or restore energy and connection to Source, will take a sabbatical and go and become the Hermit. What we see here in the past is you possibly acting as a mediator We have one of these little white birds showing up here, Sagittarius, that depicts purity. And we have here the members of the clergy, so communing not only with the living, but with those who have passed. We have this figure here who's very ashen colored and not exclusive of any particular gender. So you might have acted as a go-between in situations, Sagittarius. You might be a bit of a spiritual leader. I think the Hierophant showed up in last week's reading as well, as I recall. Were some similar energies. I don't remember exactly. But this would be a situation that perpetuates into the current environment that you occupy at this time. While the Hierophant is very forward seeing, actually, as it looks here, it looks like he's looking into the future. But I do want to point out that when I have the card laid out like this, he's actually looking toward the past placements. So learning from history is also going to be a big part of that energy that you're bringing into the current situation, Sagittarius. Oh, yes, I think the Empress was in your reading last week. That long-term project energy. Maybe she's here again. You'll just have to wait and find out. So here in the place of the significator, we have the Queen of Swords. This is going to be water of air energy. So again, we've got a white bird, so that purity of ideals, some white flowers down here. She would be associated with Gemini energy. And we do have the Lovers. We see that from the opposite angle, that they are right outside of the Queen of Swords window. The Queen of Swords promotes the truth, her truth, purity of thought, purity of deed. The water carried into the air brings moisture. So we have that active element of air that is capable of carrying water over distances, actually, in the form of storm clouds and rain and different types of precipitation from the sky. And this has the potential to bring water and fertility to places that are not immediately next to a body of water. So this Queen of Swords energy is more about the fertility and transport of ideas also. Now, she's looking here towards us. She's not looking back here. Perhaps she knows that this is going on. And that's another thing about the Queen of Swords, is that she has awareness. She might not be full-on psychic like the High Priestess, but she's going to have awareness and astuteness and be able to sniff out when things are going on. So she doesn't need to be looking outside of her window to know what's happening out there. And that might be the energy that you are occupying at this time, Sagittarius, is that Queen of Swords energy, ferreting out the truth and being well aware of what the truth is, so that if somebody exposes something to you, claims that it is the truth, you will know whether or not that is so. And this is important because crossing that energy of the Queen of Swords, we have the Moon card. The Moon is Pisces card. We have this crayfish in the water, and I was very curious about this at one point, and so I looked into it. The crayfish and a lot of other shellfish will molt during the new moon because they are safer from predators. Predators can't see them. But in the light of the full moon, I think it is the case that the fishermen do not put out the traps, because what will happen is they will put out the traps and lots of shellfish might get trapped in there, but then they're immediately predated by all of these other things that want to get at their delicious meats. So the cycles of the moon are very important for fishermen. And the moon, of course, those cycles are tied to the way that bodies of water move on our planet and the magnetic poles and things like that. So there is a lot to be learned from the moon. There's a lot of complexity to its cycles. Some cycles are very good for being able to see at night, but other cycles are not very good to be able to see at night. And ideally, you are not navigating in the moonlight. You're waiting until day arrives. You would only be navigating in the moonlight if you are trying to be stealthy. So it's very good for you to be in this Queen of Swords energy right now, Sagittarius, such that you will be able to successfully navigate this tricky situation brought about by the moon. The moon can also have to do with the arts, and a lot of things having to do with the arts can be a little bit nebulous. And so it will be good to have that Queen of Swords discernment. Down here in the Imam Sili, so the Imam Sili is kind of like right beneath the significator, and what it represents is the origins and foundations upon which the midheaven will be built, everything that happens in the midheaven. So what we see here in the Imam Sili is the Five of Pentacles. Now this is not an ideal card to get in a reading, but this is a good position to get it, because this would be feelings in the current situation of lack, feelings of scarcity that you might be grappling with. And especially if things around you are a bit unclear. Even if you have enough, you might be feeling scarcity because you don't know where the next thing is going to come from. And if we look at this card, we see people who are refugees escaping a war-torn country. But we do see, growing up between the ruins of this building, we see new growth. So the potential for them to return to their homes someday is there. And indeed, this building has not been entirely looted. There is still some designs here on the front showing those Five Pentacles that could be salvaged if somebody really needs them to melt down and make into something new. Here, from your perspective, Sagittarius. So remember, we had the Queen of Wands in the reverse in the Leo reading. And here in your reading, Sagittarius, we have the Queen of Cups in the reverse. So this is going to be water of water energy. And we do see the yin yang on her brow. She's wearing a Star of David. She does have fish here on her fan. She could be a Pisces. But because this Queen of Cups is showing up in the reverse, again, similar to the King of Cups in reverse, this person could be a little emotionally manipulative or could also be easily manipulated by others. And that might be why you are coming on so strong, Sagittarius, with this Queen of Swords energy. If you feel like people have taken advantage of you or that you are easily manipulated, you're going to be working very hard on your discernment in order to move forward in a way where you're not going to be taken advantage of. And that, of course, too, could lead to some feelings of lack. So here, from an outside person's perspective, we have the Four of Wands in the reverse. And the Four of Wands is a card of celebration. It can be a card of buying a property. We have the four pillars, typical of the four corners of a building. It can also represent marriage. So other people around you might see that you have causes to celebrate, but that you are not celebrating. This would be a card that would recommend or would advise perhaps that you could celebrate your smaller victories. Maybe not as much as the larger victories, but it will help you to get out of this energy. And people will see that you're grateful for what you have, and it will draw more of that like energy to you. And again, we have another little white bird here in the corner, much like we saw in the Queen of Swords, that depicts that purity of ideology. And here on this card, we have these four white flowers on the ground that have pink in their centers. So this would be emotional awakenings, maybe your first crush. So maybe you have a passion for something. And because this is also showing up, I like to pretend that I have a wheel of the 12 houses laid out on my Celtic cross spread. So the outside person's perspective is right there in the fifth house. So the fifth house has to do with passions, what it is that you're passionate about. And perhaps what is going on with you right now that people observe from the outside is that people observe that you have found something for the first time that they see you being very passionate about. And so your successes in that area might not be financial, right? Because we do have that Five of Pentacles showing up. But that doesn't diminish their quality. They should still be celebrated. And people are still proud of you because of those accomplishments. So now we're here at the future placement. And we do indeed have the Empress showing up in your reading again this week, Sagittarius. And this time she is showing up in the future placement. So the Empress has this bird here in front of her who is bringing her this berry. Now, the bird could have just gobbled that berry right up, but the bird really wanted to bring the berry to the Empress. This is someone who is charming to animal and person alike. Someone who has that passive energy. Someone who is a symbol in and of themselves of fertility and of these long-term projects that develop and unfold over time. She does have the light of the star, the divine white light of source showing up as an earring here, and stars all over her headpiece as well, her hat. You can see these lofty mountains in the background. Now, mountains sometimes in cartomancy represent obstacles to be overcome. Oh, that's wonderful. Maria, I'm so glad to hear about your journey. Thank you for sharing. She has these little red flowers here, and the berries that the bird is offering are actually right here as well. And the red flowers kind of represent the carnal aspects, the earthy aspects of the reproductive process. So she's very acquainted with those, but look at how they're showing up very small, and they're showing up interspersed with this wheat growing all around the world. She's got the world here. It's very small, easily contained. So, as I was saying, the mountains are back there in the background, and they're very far and distant. She's not even looking in that direction. So, moving forward, this project, this long term goal that you have, you will be achieving it according to the Empress. And she waits for others to bring things to her. So, because this card is in the upright and in the future, I do advise that to some extent you wait for people to bring things to you. In the area of your hopes and fears, we have the Ace of Pentacles, and it's showing up reversed. You're afraid there's not any money in it. So, I'm not sure if there will be or not, because we're coming to some very controversial cards in just a moment. We have, with the Ace of Pentacles, pure elemental earth, and being able to manifest, drawing the divine down to one's self. So any elemental earth energy that you're able to harness at this time would be very helpful to you, Sagittarius, as a mutable fire sign, to blend that into whatever manifestive workings you're doing. The next card we have is in the midheaven. And this is going to be the outcome of this Five of Pentacles energy. The eventual outcome is the Ten of Swords. And this is one of those cases where a very painful and troublesome card like the Ten of Swords is probably actually to your benefit, such that it will be an ending to this mentality, and it will be an ending to feeling like you always have to run to the next thing. It could even be a sense of security and comfort. And your final outcome for this reading, Sagittarius. So this is in direct opposition to what we have here in that fifth house. Everyone else's perspective on it but yours. The Four of Wands in the reverse. We have this Seven of Pentacles in the reverse. Now, usually I call this the quit your job card. So I think that this is cueing you at this time, Sagittarius. As you go through this evaluation process, it's time for you to leave behind the things that are no longer serving you. So there's something called a sunk cost fallacy, in which you purchase something or you get involved in something, and even though it's not going well, you keep pumping money into it in the hope that it will turn around. But you know in the end that any extra resources you put into it are going to just be lost. So I advise you at this time, Sagittarius, any of those things that have become a sunk cost fallacy to you, that you just let them go. The Seven of Pentacles is a card very similar to the Five of Pentacles, in which we have a lot of disappointment and a lot of kind of empty promises that have been broken and feelings of lack. And it's going to be time, you're going to be leaving those things behind, regardless of whether you want to or not. That's what the Ten of Swords is saying. So keep that in mind and understand that a lot of those energies are temporary and they will be leaving your life very soon. So that is going to conclude the fire sign readings for this week. If you are interested, I will be going over to the members side of the channel to do some crystal scrying. If that is interesting to you, you are cordially invited. But or however you show up on this channel is very much appreciated. Thank you for coming. And I look forward to seeing you again very,